What is up, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. I'm financial coach Jess, and on my channel I talk quite a bit about how much you can make as a financial coach, but how much does it cost? In today's video, I'm going to be going over my monthly and then also yearly expenses that I have as an online business. You probably already know this, but your living wage is not your total revenue that you make in the business. So on the one hand, you have total revenue. This is all of the money generated within your online business, and sometimes this is also referred to as gross sales. And then on the other hand, you have gross profit. So this is the total amount after you deduct only what it costs to make and sell that product or service. You see this all the time if you watch Shark Tank. The sharks will ask the entrepreneurs, what does it take to make the product? And the entrepreneurs will say, $39.50 landed, and then we turn around and sell it for $150. So in this example, $150 minus $39.50 is their gross profit. And then you have net profit or net income. So net profit, this is the amount that's left over after you've subtracted all of the cost of goods sold and all of the other expenses that come along with running a business. This is not by any means a full-on accounting lesson, but I want you to understand the difference between cost of goods sold, the cost of actually performing a service or selling a product, and all other business expenses, the cost of running a business. It's important that we understand the difference between those two things because they are two different things on the profit and loss report. So just to make sure that we're clear here on the profit and loss, we want to make sure in particular that we are tracking, number one, total revenue, gross sales. Number two, gross profit. So this takes into account the cost of goods sold or the cost of performing that service. And then number three is net profit, and this is what is left over after we have paid all the business expenses and we've paid all the cost of goods sold. So let's talk cost of goods sold first, otherwise known as COGS, and my COGS expenses are very, very minimal. One of my cost of goods sold is that I pay for QuickBooks Online for a couple of my clients that I've had since 2017, and this is very, very small. It comes out to about $180 for the year. On the financial coaching side and coaching coaches as well, my biggest expense by far is going to be Kajabi. So this is my course hosting platform. This is where I put all of my recorded content for my two programs, 12 Weeks to Wealth and Become a Coach. If you want to learn more about Kajabi and using it to host your platforms, I have a full video here and I go through all of the benefits as well as all the drawbacks about using Kajabi to host my programs. I have the lowest tier of Kajabi and it comes out to $1,428 for the year. I do pay it up front because it saves me a little bit rather than paying for it monthly. Another constant expense that falls under the COGS category is the premium Every Dollar app, and I pay $130 for that for the entire year. My last constant expense that falls under the COGS category is Zoom. This is how I deliver my services. Everybody knows what Zoom is, and the tier that I have is $150 for the year. To put in perspective, if you take all of those expenses that fall under my cost of goods sold that I have on a recurring basis, it breaks out to about $157 a month. And that's not how it breaks out for me because I pay all of them yearly except for QuickBooks Online. But I think that gives you some idea and kind of help you grasp maybe what it actually costs for me to deliver my services. I have other small odds and ends within my program, like I'll send clients certain gifts when they hit milestones and this and that, but these do fluctuate. They're not constant and they're very minimal. It doesn't cost me very much. When I'm looking at the profit and loss for 2020, my cost of goods sold was a whopping 3% of my total revenue last year. This isn't super surprising in an online business where the entrepreneur is also the service provider. It didn't cost me a lot of money in 2020, but it did cost me a lot of time. Another thing that this 3% tells us is that my taxes are going to be insane. And sure enough, ever since I started my business, taxes has been my biggest expense. In 2021, I see that changing because I myself will finally be on payroll. Since I haven't been on payroll yet, that explains why taxes have been so incredibly high. So that wraps up our cost of goods sold. Let's dive into the rest of the line items underneath that to see what it takes to actually run an online business. The first line item is accounting. So of course, I do all my own bookkeeping, but I do still hire a professional accountant to do my taxes at the end of the year. And for 2017 through 2020, I paid someone and it was about $375 for the year. In 2021, that jumps to $700 because I am converting to an S Corp. Next is advertising. Right now, I'm not paying anything in advertising. I have paid quite a bit in the past for different things. One of the biggest ones was being a Ramsey preferred coach after I finished FCMT, and I explained in this video right here why being an RPC was a really big waste of time and money, but I did learn a lot of valuable lessons. So definitely check out that video if you're interested in becoming an RPC or you want the inside scoop. Some other expenses in this category have been, I've dabbled in Facebook ads, I've gotten professional photos done, I had my old website under Squarespace, and I've done giveaways, a lot of things like that. It's really just a mixed bag of advertising strategies and techniques that I've implemented. And I will say that some of the best investments in this category over the last couple years have been, number one, my Squarespace website. That was a little under $100 for the entire year is what I paid to be on Squarespace. Another one was getting professional photos done, and that was between $800 to $900 per session, which was totally 100% worth it. And my third most valuable investment would probably be my $100 giveaway that I did a couple years ago, which immediately paid for itself right after. And it was a lot of work, but it was also really fun to do. The next big line item on my profit and loss is computer software and equipment. And I also have a subcategory under this for Stripe, which is my credit card processor. And as you can imagine, this category is a biggie for any online business. A couple of recurring subscriptions in this category. I do pay for Canva Premium, which is $120 for the year. I stayed on the free version for as long as I possibly could, but last year with starting to create thumbnails and needing a couple more premium features, I decided that Canva Premium was going to be worth it. I have Charter Spectrum for internet, and that is $75 a month, which is a little on the high side. I actually probably need to call them because that seems really high to me. And then I also pay for a yearly subscription to Calendly, and that is $96 for the entire year. And that's to have basically more than one link that's available to you that people can book sessions or discovery calls on. And let me say, I just absolutely love Calendly. And then for my funnels, I have Zapier, which is $25 a month, and that connects my deadline funnel, which is $100 a month. That's probably my most expensive subscription that I have on a recurring basis. With all the odds and ends and other things in this category, the total was still a little bit less than 3% of my total revenue for 2020. But let's talk about the most annoying fee within this category, and that is what I mentioned earlier, my Stripe fees. So how Stripe works is that they process the credit cards and they take a percentage of that fee that that client is paying to you, which is I think right around 3%. In 2020, my credit card processing fees were $2,600. And yes, that makes me want to cry. Before you dive into the comments and start suggesting free alternatives like PayPal, Venmo, Wave, all these other things, I don't want to get super derailed here and talk about why I do use Stripe, but just know that it's definitely convenience. It's way more legally legit than using things like PayPal, which you're not really supposed to do for coaching services like this. And it's just really a simple cost of doing business as well. With online businesses, we really don't have a lot of expenses compared to other businesses, and those other businesses still have credit card processing fees on top of all of the other stuff that a brick and mortar store has to pay for. So to keep it in perspective, the glass is half full, and it's just a cost of doing business the right way. Another line item that falls next on the profit and loss is meals, and that was like right around $270 last year. It was not big at all. And then the next really big one is office expenses. Office expenses account for 4 to 5% of my total revenue, and these are things like my desk, plans for my office, extension cords, we got new baseboards in here last year, blue blocker glasses, my planner, a new fan, cleaning supplies, external hard drive, office decor. And here's the thing with this one. I have designed a spot in my house that is exclusively for my business. I don't do business from my couch. I don't work in my kitchen, and it wouldn't be deductible anyway because it wouldn't be exclusively used for my business. AKA, you can't set up a desk in your living room and then deduct like everything inside of it. The space that you use for your business, it can't be a multi-purpose room. Don't take my word for it. Don't listen to me on this. Talk to your accountant to get clarification on the home office business usage within your house. Similar expenses that might fall under the home office deduction are things like your phone, office rent, utilities. Definitely make sure if you have a home office that you are talking to your accountant, that you're clear on what qualifies as a deduction. All the way down the profit and loss to my biggest expense of all, and I've already told you guys this, it is taxes paid. Taxes paid was about 20% of my income last year. And let me tell you guys, the self-employment tax is absolutely killer. And this is why moving forward, I have converted to an S corporation. I will be taxed as an S corporation, and I will be on payroll for 2021 to avoid the self-employment tax as best I can. Taxes are going to vary depending on what state you're in, possibly depending on where you're watching this video from, if you're in a different country as well. So keep that in mind. But for me, living in Missouri, it was about 20% of my income. For 2020, my second highest expense was training and education, and especially in my field and with what I do, I take professional development very, very seriously. I have to keep learning and expanding my knowledge and networking with other entrepreneurs and learning from entrepreneurs that are ahead of where I am. This includes things like events, business retreats, coaching, Audible. I listen to a lot of books on Audible, other courses. There's so many ways to learn from other entrepreneurs and other mentors. Last year, training and education was between 5 and 6% of my total revenue. My next line item is YouTube expenses and YouTube editing, which I do outsource. Not a ton that goes in this category. I pay for TubeBuddy, which helps me with knowing my tags and getting my best practices done on YouTube for best optimization, and that is $43 for the year. I also pay rev.com to add closed captions to my videos for people that are deaf or hard of hearing, and that comes out to $1.10 a minute, so it's like $15 to $25 per video. And then I pay my video editor for editing and putting all the fancy stuff on my videos. And then I also paid a VA, a virtual assistant, last summer to help me out while I was getting YouTube off the ground. I also add in any YouTube equipment upgrades. Those would go in this category as well. So my microphone, if I ever got a new camera, my new lights that I got recently, all of those fall under YouTube expenses as well. Something that I found was really interesting while I was running the numbers for this video in particular is how my expenses have changed over the last couple years. Here are the top 5 expenses broken out by year, including my prediction for what my top 5 expenses are going to be in 2021. In 2018, and technically I don't count 2017 since I started in October, number 1, since taxes weren't due until technically 2019, my highest expense was my Stripe fee. So credit card processing fees was actually my biggest. Number 2 was training and education. Number 3 was computer, software, and equipment. My 4th biggest expense was advertising. And my 5th was auto expenses. Believe it or not, between my auto expenses and the miles that I just drove, this might be my biggest expense for 2018, which is crazy. But I remember driving around and networking and going to BNI and Chamber of Commerce and all these different things. And I was driving, just getting my name out as fast as I possibly could. 2018 was really my first year in business. I didn't have a lot of clients. And so the majority of my time, 95% of my time was spent marketing and just talking to people, having conversations, and having those conversations lead to clients. Moving on to 2019. So to give you a little bit of context, my revenue doubled from 2018 to 2019. My first biggest expense was taxes. Second was advertising. Number 3 was training and education. Number 4 was Stripe fees or credit card processing fees. And then number 5 was office expenses. I also spent an absurd amount on advertising in 2019, and I'm so glad I started YouTube in 2020 rather than continuing to just throw money in advertising. And I definitely wasn't driving nearly as much in 2019 as I was in 2018 because my strategies were shifting more to the online space since that's really where I wanted to be long term. And so I still had some auto expenses. I was still having some miles rack up, but it definitely wasn't nearly as much as the year before. And finally, in 2020, my biggest expense, as you've already heard, is taxes. Number 2 was training and education. Number 3, computer equipment and software. Number 4 was YouTube expenses. And number 5 was cost of goods sold or cost of services provided. For 2021, here is how I expect my top 5 expenses this year to break down. Number 1 is going to be payroll. Number 2 is going to be taxes. Number 3 is going to be video editing. Number 4, training and education. And number 5 is legal counsel. And number 5 might surprise you, but a big priority of mine this year is to get everything caught up legally behind the scenes with website privacy policy, terms and conditions, protecting my program, copywriting stuff, that sort of thing. So this is my biggest, most practical video, I think, when it comes to actually running an online business as a financial coach. I hope so much that you guys got a ton of value out of this video today and just kind of a better grasp of what the expenses are and what they look like whenever you are running a business from your home. If you got value out of this video today, if you learned something new, don't forget to hit the like button for the YouTube algorithm, subscribe to my channel for future videos, and I'll see you guys in the next one.